At 0223 hours, 3 Ukrainian FP1 drones silently crossed into Russian-monitored waters. The Black Sea lay calm, deceptively still, as the small plywood frames cut across waves at 180 kilometers per hour. Their target, a Russian spy ship, a ghostly sentinel sitting 15 miles off Novorosis, whose R-381T arrays had been listening to Ukraine's every naval movement for 6 weeks. Patterns of life had been mapped, analyzed, and predicted, and for Russia, this patrol was routine. For Ukraine, this was the opening act of a meticulously orchestrated operation. The drones skimmed just 3 meters above the waves. Their plywood construction gave them a radar cross-section smaller than a seagull. To radar operators trained to track metal aircraft, these wooden vessels were effectively invisible. 20 minutes after launch, a Russian 4-post R reconnaissance drone appeared on the horizon, patrolling in its habitual racetrack pattern 30 kilometers off the coast. Its MX-15DI camera, Canadian-made, could detect a basketball at 5 kilometers, and its thermal mode spotted differences in temperature as slight as 2 degrees Celsius. At 0245, the lead FP1's engine heat flickered on the radar screen. 3 small, fast-moving contacts heading east at 180 kilometers per hour. The Russian operators zoomed in, trying to classify the intruders, but the Ukrainian drones had been programmed for perfect evasive maneuvers. They dropped to 2 meters above the water, vanishing into radar clutter, the chaotic reflections from waves that make low-flying objects almost impossible to detect. Within minutes, the plywood cooled to match the sea's temperature. To the thermal camera, they had vanished completely. Logged as possible birds, the drones continued toward their objective. Unchallenged, a silent vanguard slipping through the cracks of an advanced surveillance network. The urgency of the FP1 launch became clear minutes later. Russian Shahed drones had discovered the launch site, arriving mere moments after the FP1s had cleared the area. 50-kilogram warheads reduced equipment to nothing but scrap. The Ukrainian operators had barely escaped with their lives. Meanwhile, the spy ship's intelligence network worked tirelessly, attempting to analyze the breach, but the momentum was already in Ukraine's favor. At 0330, 20 additional Ukrainian naval drones launched toward Silvestol, moving at 80 kilometers per hour. This decoy swarm was a masterclass in deception, a mix of modified jet skis and commercial boats equipped with minimal guidance systems. Each craft cost less than $10,000. Throwaway assets designed to replicate the radar signature of real Mira V5 naval drones. Formation, speed, radio frequencies, and even thermal signatures mimicked armed drones perfectly. To Russian radar operators, it looked like the largest coordinated naval drone assault in nearly 2 years. A convincing decoy swarm requires more than numbers. It demands choreography. These drones moved in realistic attack patterns, spreading into assault formations, converging on high-value targets, and performing evasive maneuvers that mimicked human reaction. Ukrainian operators controlled them via satellite for the first 50 kilometers before switching to autopilot. Each drone transmitted on frequencies monitored by Russian intelligence. Some even carried small heat sources to simulate infrared signatures of fully armed drones. The Russian admiral had 6 Ka-27PL helicopters at Novorosis and 4 at Sevastopol, vital assets for neutralizing naval drones. Ships and fighter jets were either too slow or ill-equipped for such fast, low-level threats. Helicopters could cover 100 kilometers in 20 minutes, drop RGB-16 depth charges effective within 50 meters, and use dipping sonar to hunt underwater drones. Without these helicopters, Novorosis's approaches were effectively defenseless. When the decoy swarm launched, Russian doctrine demanded immediate response. All 6 helicopters raced west at 270 kilometers per hour, leaving the real drones free to approach from the east. Every minute of their flight was another minute of vulnerability. By the time the Russians realized the deception, they were 360 kilometers out of position. The spy ship, 15 miles offshore, was now unprotected, air cover gone, reaction forces misdirected, and the intelligence mission in jeopardy. The 3 FP1 drones adjusted their course 15 degrees north, exploiting a vulnerability discovered through months of careful observation. 2 Podlit K1 radar stations rotated at exactly 10 revolutions per minute. For 4 seconds every 60, both radars' beams pointed away from the same small sector, a narrow, 2-kilometer corridor the drones needed to exploit. The first drone entered this corridor, 4 seconds invisible, 2 seconds barely visible, then gone again. The second followed 30 seconds later. The third experienced a minor autopilot glitch, drifting drifting 200 meters off course. Correcting north burned precious fuel, but the drone remained on target. Russian radars reported 20 targets at Sevastopol, but one intruder, a wooden phantom, was dismissed as a probable bird. Months of intelligence, thousands of monitoring hours, misinterpreted in seconds. At 0500, the decoy swarm executed its final maneuver. Some beached themselves, others circled until fuel exhaustion, and a few simply stopped moving. The Russian helicopters wasted an hour hunting these disposable drones. By the time they returned to base, they were 180 kilometers from Novorosis, half their fuel gone. Novorosis remained exposed, the real drones free to exploit the chaos. Morning fog thickened. The lead FP1, now 240 kilometers from the target, faced GPS interference. Russian R-330 ZHTO systems attempted to walk it toward a Panzer battery by broadcasting false satellite signals. But Ukraine had prepared for this. Oil platforms across the Black Sea allowed visual fixes, recalibrating navigation every 50 kilometers. The second drone failed. Its GPS died, not from jamming, but due to a failing Chinese capacitor. Inertial navigation over open water accumulated error at 10 meters per minute. 8 kilometers off course, it plunged into the ocean at 0645. 2 drones remained. The third pressed forward, relying solely on its gyroscope, maintaining course even as the spy ship activated its Mineral ME radar to scan western approaches. By 0730, the lead FP1 approached 15 miles off Novorosis. Temperature inversion bent radar beams upward, making anything below 30 meters invisible. At 3 meters above the waves, the FP1 was effectively a submarine. A patrol boat spotted it visually at 500 meters, opening fire. Tracers riddled the wooden frame, one striking the propeller, causing violent vibrations. Yet the drone pressed on. At 0733, the spy ship's mast became visible. The FP1 had 90 seconds of fuel remaining. The third drone, mechanical gyroscope guiding it, emerged from the haze at 0734, 10 meters above water, striking the bridge's mast. The explosion gutted the control center instantly. R381T arrays melted. 6 weeks of intelligence, dozens of documented strikes, predictive patterns, all destroyed in seconds. Secondary fires raged for 18 hours. The spy ship survived, but its electronic eyes were permanently blind. Within hours, new drones launched from different sites, invisible once more. Russia could still target empty fields, but the patterns that could have ended Ukraine's drone war were gone. The Black Sea had been rewritten. Operation Ghost Horizon demonstrated a brutal truth. Technology alone cannot guarantee dominance. Ingenuity, careful observation, and precise execution can turn the smallest, cheapest assets into game-changing weapons. Months of planning, observation, and preparation allowed wooden drones to rewrite the rules of engagement, leaving one of the most sophisticated intelligence networks in the world blind, bewildered, and outmaneuvered. In the end, control is temporary. Strategy, patience, and adaptability are permanent, and while the waves of the Black Sea returned to their quiet rhythm, the war had already shifted forever.